Hi, welcome to On the Edge. I'm Max Keisera. Time now to go and visit with the infamous, no, I should say the famous, the trend-setting, the trends researcher, the one and only Gerald Celente. Gerald, welcome to On the Edge.
Hey, Max. Great being on with you. Thanks for having me.
I couldn't help but notice that white jacket you've got on. What's the story there, Gerald?
Well, I understand that the IMF is looking for a new head, so I'm going to try out for it, so I wanted to put the correct outfit on. Because after all the IMF is the International Mafia Federation. They're nothing more than the loan sharks of last resort. So, but they dress the part differently, so I figured, being that, they're looking for someone now, I'll try out for it. I know how to do this. Here's what they do. They go into a country that's really desperate, they can't borrow a dime anywhere, and the IMF comes in and they say, hey, I'll loan you the money. And you say, but how are you going to pay me back? Well, you know what, you tax the people. You put more taxes on them. And then you tax the people, you don't get enough, and they say, listen, I'm not getting enough money. I want the bridge. You want the bridge. I want the bridge. I want the highway. I want the water supply. Capiche? It's the International Mafia Federation. They're nothing more than shakedown artists. So I figured out, being that you have an international show, maybe someone from the IMF will see that, I have what it takes to get what they want. Maybe I can get the job.
From what you're saying, Gerald, you would agree then with folks like John Perkins, who wrote that book, Confessions of an Economic Hitman. They basically make the loans. If you can't make the payments on the loans, they come in there, they break your legs, or they actually assassinate you, correct?
Exactly. That's all they are. They're the loan sharks of last resort. And everybody holds it. But you see, they know how to dress in public. And they know how to behave. And they have these wonderful names, like these Legrand names with 3 names attached to them, like Dominique Strauss-Kahn. Of course, I don't know if this guy is guilty of raping that woman, but whether or not, it's what the IMF does. They're either raping a person or raping a country.
Yeah, well, this is part and parcel of a global banking syndicate, right? It's not just the IMF, but it's the World Bank, too, also the Wall Street banks and the central banks and the Bank of International Settlements, which is kind of the capo de capo of all the mafia banks, isn't it, Gerald?
That's all it is. You said it perfectly. That's all it is. And the people are never going to be free until we break the banks. Break the banks and bring down the bigs, or else you're just going to be a chained slave to the system because they got you where they want you. They have you in debt. It's the student, the person with the mortgage, or the country going under. They got you. The banksters are in control. It's the mafia of mafias.
What's happening? You talk about banking, Gerald Celente. There was a lot of talk after the 2008 crash for reform of the banking system, and yet we haven't seen any. So going forward, is it too late for reform? Is the window for reform closed? Will we see any reform at all?
You won't see any change at all as long as the Republicans and Democrats, again, just another element of the family, of the crime syndicate. And matter of fact, Max, I've come to the conclusion that the only possible solution out of all of this, whether it's the U.S., the UK, Spain, Italy, France, Germany, Greece, you name the country, Ireland, the only way out is through a direct democracy. We, the people, have to vote on issues of healthcare, on issues of war, on issues of bailouts, on issues of regulation, of major importance. Let the people vote. Because this isn't a representative form of government. You could tell little kids in high school it is, that your senator and congressman represent you. They represent the people that give them the most amount of money so they could stuff into their pockets. When are you going to grow up? The Congress is nothing but a bunch of wieners. Does anybody have to look any further? So the only way out of this, Max, and this is going to be my campaign from this point forward, let the people vote. Let the people vote. We have no constitution left in the country, so we don't have to make believe that we're rejigging the constitution. It's been decimated already. Let's reformulate it for the 21st century. Listen, if you could bank online, you could vote online. This could really be simple.
Okay, you mentioned voting. Let's talk about a country that actually held a vote. They held a referendum deciding whether or not they should comply with the demands from outside bankers. The country was Iceland. They had a referendum. The people voted against the banksters, and now they're prosecuting the banksters. Why is Iceland, Gerald Celente of Trends Journal, why is Iceland seemingly the only country in the world willing to take on the bankers?
I guess they still have that Nordic Viking fight in them. Because I'll tell you, I just got back from Ireland, and boy, there are no fighting Irish over there. The IMF is giving it to them good.
All right, let me get you to handicap a situation, see what your thoughts are on this. There's a movement afoot that possibly in America that a Cairo-like moment is staged via Facebook where 1 million or so Americans who are underwater on their mortgages because of the criminal behavior of the banksters simultaneously default. They walk away on the same day, thus putting it back to the banksters in a coordinated, Cairo-like revolutionary manner. Do you think this has a chance, a snowball's chance in Hades of happening, Gerald Celente of Trends Journal?
I don't think so at this time. I don't think movement is strong enough. But that kind of movement is precisely the kind of thing that needs to be done. The people have to use their wits and their abilities to stop the system from steamrolling over them. Again, I would love to see it happen, but I keep seeing these failures. And there was wasn't the one in France last year? I think it was July something. They were going to tell people not to go to the bank or something.
That's right. It happened in France last year. A very famous rugby player, a footballer at the time, had people pulling money out of their bank. But of course, to me, it seemed half-cocked because you'd end up putting your money just in another bank as opposed to putting it into maybe gold and silver, where it could have actual resonance in reshaping the system. I believe you're also a big proponent of gold and silver, Gerald Celente.
Oh yeah, gold, especially gold. I've been buying gold since 1978. Actually, my first buy was $187.50 an ounce, and of course we call the bottom of gold in 2001. And I've been buying since. I like gold better than silver only because I don't say silver is bad. I own some, but the system is collapsing. It's collapsing in front of us.
When you say the system is collapsing, can we say that this is pretty much tied to the paper money system, the credit expansion that's been fueling this fake growth for so many years? This is pretty much the nettle of it, isn't it? The fiat money system.
It's entirely it. Look, anybody that has a half a brain could look back since the panic of '08. The tens of trillions pumped into the system. The best it did was to keep it on life support. And now at some point they're going to have to pull the plug on the money pump. And when that happens, the whole thing collapses. The Ponzi scheme, as you well call it, a global Ponzi scheme. You're the first person I heard call it that, and it's so accurate. When that Ponzi scheme ends, all the fiat currencies decline with it. Probably only one of the few that will stay strong, I believe, is the Swiss franc, because they're like the money cockroaches of the world. You know, all these crooks and criminals, they need to wash their money somewhere. Hey, and Switzerland's been doing a very good job of that. Just look at their track record during World War II. So the dirty money is going to have to be washed through somewhere, and Switzerland is the country of choice for that.
Okay, but what does this also tell us about the collapse of fiat money, perhaps, and the rise in these basic commodity prices? There seems to be a shift out of paper into stuff.
That's right, you got it, because you could sell stuff, and paper isn't worth the digital paper it's not printed on. So people are going to steal anything they can to turn it in for a buck, and commodity prices are going to stay continually high as the currencies continually be devalued. Simple as that.
Now, Gerald, America is presently bombing or occupying at least 5 Muslim countries: Afghanistan, Pakistan, Yemen, Libya, Iraq. What do you see on the war front? Imminent wars in this oil-rich region? What can we expect here? More war?
The business of America used to be business back in the 20th century, the first half of it. Now the business of America is war. That's what they do. It's what all declining empires do. Follow the line. 1929, Great Depression, currency wars, trade wars, hot wars. The panic of '08, the Great Recession / Depression. The only reason it hasn't happened because of the funny money that they keep pumping it at the system, keeping it alive on life support. We have currency wars, trade wars to follow, real wars. The first great war of the 21st century, Max, has begun. What's happening in the Middle East and North Africa, what the United States is doing in Pakistan, Yemen, and now in Libya, is only more of what we're going to see coming. It's going to be wars fought with dirty bombs, weapons of mass destruction, suitcase-sized nukes. Boom goes London, boom Paris. It's been written about years ago, and it's happening now. It's going to happen. You can't keep killing a lot of people without them wanting to seek revenge. It's a very simple story. But again, when the Ponzi schemes collapse, this is what they do. They take you to war.
Okay, in a war, there's usually a front. In this war, this 21st century war, the first of the 21st century as you're describing it, the front is a bit fractured. We see Cairo, we see Tunisia, we see Dublin, Athens. We also see Madison, Wisconsin. Am I wrong to group Madison, Wisconsin into this front line of this 21st century war?
Yes, I think so, because that was an individual issue having to do with workers in one aspect. Because when you look at all of these wars, and again, not being a Monday morning quarterback, having forecasts that this would happen, we made our forecast based on very basic principles. A lot of unemployed people, particularly the youth. So figure it out. You got a lot of young people with those hormones raging, and they're raging mad. Again, they're holding university degrees in worthlessness. They're living on, like in Egypt, at best $10 a day, 40% of the country in poverty, and the people knowing the deal. It's not like the old feudal days. In these neo-feudal days, they know the story. The people at the top are robbing everything. And again, when you talk about the IMF and you talk about Egypt, let's go back to 1990. That was the privatization scam. They took those valuable public resources and sold them to their friends. So what's happening in Ireland, what's happening in Spain, Portugal, Greece, in the Middle East, everyone knows the deal. The top of the pyramid has all the money, and when the money stops flowing down to the man on the street, the blood starts flowing in the streets. There's no stopping it, but boy, are they going to try.